Streaming again, and we are happy to have you all at home, safe, watching our streamings and enjoy our guests. So please give a big round of applause at our comments for yourself and for those who are now staying at home for safety and security reasons. Please share here in Facebook and YouTube comments, how do you feel nowadays and how is your working process organized? And don't forget to share your thoughts and questions to Imaguru speakers. Tomorrow is going to be a great day. Venture Day means conference will be organized online, starting 11 in the morning with the support of US Agency for International Development, USAID, Startup Lithuania, British Embassy in Belarus, and English Dome. The conference will be streamed at YouTube Live, and the topic of the conference will be Startup World, the new normal. The question is, what will new normal look like for the startup community and for each startup aimed at the global market? We understand that the business landscape has changed fundamentally. We are facing a totally new global order, requiring new skills, knowledge, level of adaptability and vision from every participant. For many startups, short-term survival is the only agenda. Others are thinking about how to position themselves when the crisis has passed and things return to normal. And our speakers will give their take on what the startup world post-crisis will look like and what the startups need to be prepared for. While no one can say how long the crisis will last, we are confident through it all. Technological innovation will continue, and the value of increasing human knowledge will remain undiminished. Tomorrow's environment will be different, but no less rich in possibilities for those who are prepared. Venture Day Minsk speakers will join the conference through YouTube Live and will share their views on the new normal. Please check out Venture Day Minsk agenda on our website. And we will also organize a startup competition where 10 selected companies will pitch live in the evening, 6 p.m. The startup pitch will last for 2 minutes. So participation in the conference is free of charge and registration is available now on venturedayminsk.com. So, and today we're happy to kick off this conversation about new normal and funding opportunities in these uncertain times. And Imaguru streaming, which is called VC Evolutions and is to be organized every week with the support of USAID, would like to open a discussion on how startups can navigate the change in early stage investment climate due to COVID-19. And I'm super excited to introduce our speakers. So, Max Gurvitz, our friend from Sofia and partner at Vitosha Venture Partners, and Mike Reiner, who is our friend from Amsterdam and who is an investor at Open Ocean. Hello, guys.
Mute. Hey, guys.
Yes, you should be at mute. And Max, please, Artur, help to unmute Max.
I think you just need to, Max, click the button again.
Okay, I think
Okay.
no, there I am. How are you? Someone muted me, but now I'm back.
Cool. So guys, could you please briefly introduce yourself and in terms of your investment and professional focus for startups?
Sure.
Do you want to go ahead?
Max, yes, Max, please.
Max, go ahead.
Oh, I have to go ahead. Okay, good, cool. Well, my name is Max Gurvitz. It's a big pleasure to be back with everyone in Belarus and hopefully also people outside listening in. I'm based in Sofia, Bulgaria. I've been active in various roles as a founder, as an investor over the past decade. Currently very busy launching a new fund out of Bulgaria called Vitosha Venture Partners, with which we hope to invest in many, many companies, both here in Bulgaria and across the region. Hopefully also someone from Belarus. So I'm very much welcoming everyone to keep an eye out on our news announcements, and hopefully we'll be launching accelerator programs and other investment opportunities soon. Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? I've worked with several hundreds of startups in various roles. Been always very happy, visiting Minsk and meeting people there. And this week, actually, Mike and I, and also Stefan, who's supposed to join our conversation, I hope he joins in soon. We were actually supposed to be in Minsk, but this whole thing happened. So now we're with you guys online.
Sure. Mike?
Yeah, hi guys. So Max and me have known each other for quite a while. So been in a venture space also for almost a decade. Previously also co-founded an accelerator, Startup Wise Guys, that you may know. And the accelerator by now has also around 200 portfolio companies. And so I've looked a lot at early stage investment. Now we're looking into Series A stage. I'm a venture partner at Open Ocean. So we invest in what we call data intensive companies across Europe. Series A, or rather early A, what we call it, means around tickets like 5 million. That's, that we're looking at. And we typically look at it from what we call data intensive angle, meaning we're focused on B2B companies that are building solutions that are machine learning related, have a data intensive component to it, right? So that's the way we look at it from a fund point of view. Also, founders of a fund are the founders of MySQL, MariaDB, so we have a long track record on open source and infrastructure as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you very much. And how do you organize your working process right now? Do you blocked and locked down at home? Do you have any insights of nowadays effective work at home and life actually that you could share with us and with our users?
Sure enough. I mean, yeah, let me go first. I mean, what is the working process right now? I think it's very similar to what everyone has. It's sitting in front of the screen all day. It's quite a thing, right? A lot of people, I think, have actually really changed the way they work, and not in a good way. All of our friends who work in restaurants or have other kind of offline jobs, they're much less fortunate than we are. I've been talking to some of my friends who are, for instance, pilots in airlines. Normally on a normal day, that's a job that we can all be very jealous of. But a lot of those guys are just sitting at home, and guys and girls sitting at home and on the PlayStation and boring themselves to death. We've been very lucky. We can continue work, but it's been very unusual, especially if you look at our previous travel schedules. Now that we're just sitting at home, or some of us can use the office because no one is there, no one else is there, and just looking at our screens. So that's how it is for me.
Yes, exactly.
How's it for you, Mike?
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as Max mentioned, I think we're in that sense in a lucky position, right? When you talk about day to day, how life changes, I guess the key change for me personally is travel, right? I mean, because I was already used to work remotely a lot anyway. Like from different cities, whether it's from home or from co-working space, etc. It's that part now has not changed so much because I've been doing a lot of founder calls anyways via video calls. The biggest change is travel, of course, when it comes down to professional work, which in a way, I guess, also makes it slightly more productive, right? Because you lose a lot of time traveling too. So there's some upsides there. But as Max mentioned, I mean, a lot of our portfolio companies are affected. A lot of friends, founders I know are very much affected. So, it's unprecedented times for sure.
Yeah, we'll discuss that later. And we see that Stefan has joined us. Stefan, hello.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Stefan.
It's nice to... So
good.
how your work is organized right now? Where are you locked down? Are you
in my bed. That's the most comfortable place to do conf calls nowadays. So I'm basically spending most of the time from my house, and this doesn't really impact that much our work on a daily basis, because anyway, most of the time you're in front of an email or a conf call. What's interesting is that recently we've been trying to move on and do an investment deal with a company that we only met over conf calls, over a hangout, and we passed through several cycles with them, and at the end it was a relatively tough decision to take, and we decided that we cannot invest without meeting physically in person the founders, the team. So in a way, I hope that things will normalize soon, because I don't see how you can do deals only by meeting people online, or only by gathering external opinion from other people or from some experts, etc. I mean, this is not enough, at least for us. I mean, I know that there are some funds that are happy to write a quick check of like a few $100,000 just over after a few discussions online, but for us it seems to be a problem. Hopefully, we're looking to another company right now, and we're going to do the deal because we managed to meet at least partially. A few of our partners managed to meet the team, so on that one we're more kind of secured and more serious about doing the deal. So business as usual, but with some limitations, if I have to summarize it.
Let's discuss this practice in more details, and this is a very good time and right time to do this and to discuss this right now, because there are so many insights which appear even in the recent several weeks, 4-6 weeks, depends on the city and country. Okay. Actually, our first question was regarding the investment practice. Was how or have your commitments changed in terms of pipeline startups or your portfolio startups? Did you change any commitments recently, or you remained like stable in different conditions? Mark?
Well, so with me, I'll have to pass this question on to Mike and Stefan, because our fund is still in the very last bits of the launch phase. We actually are. The only thing I can say is that we are very closely monitoring the situation. We'll likely do certain deals faster. We might actually invest a little more across some stages than we were planning to, but this is still very much right now in a kind of a design phase. Hopefully, we can launch this very soon. So we are adjusting, and likely our tickets also on the acceleration level will look slightly differently compared to what they would have been without the corona crisis. But for us, it's still a future tense. So I'll refer to my friends and colleagues on their practice.
I think the business for any VC now changes to some extent, right? I think it's very hard to ignore. I mean, Stefan already mentioned, right, the face-to-face element, which is going to be very tough in order to make investments. I think a key part also, what we've spent a lot of time on the last few weeks is talk to portfolio companies, doing detailed analysis on the industry impact, short, mid, long-term analysis of what's likely going to happen. There's different scenarios out there for economic recovery, like a V or U or L-shaped recovery. That's significantly on the impact, of course, also the potential burn of portfolio companies. So I think what we did is we made an analysis of what companies need help, right? What that means for follow-on investments that we might have to allocate additional money to. What's the adjusted forecast, right? So like a growth this year, potential following years. So for portfolio, we spent quite a lot of time extra, especially over the last few weeks, to analyze this. When it comes to new deal flow, I guess a key thing there is many talks that we've had, let's say in January, now you talk about very, very much adjusted forecast, right? Because the reality looks different. I think when you look at the SME space with certain customers, that might look completely different now that budgets are on hold, right? Agencies, as an example, might reduce spending significantly. So if you have those as customers, that's going to be tough. The MarTech sector in general is expected, to freeze budgets up to 80%. If you think about this, even in a good case scenario, what prediction, WPP is saying, even with a good scenario, end of the year, 80% of the budgets are going to be frozen. So there's significant impact for current portfolio companies and for new investments for sure, right? So we're still planning to invest, obviously, but the shift is also very much with working with portfolio companies and trying to figure out what are now the industries we're wanting to double down on.
And do you have any cases when you cancel, for example, commitments or change the commitments which were discussed before the crisis?
Well, not commitments, right? But we did say no to a bunch of deals.
Okay.
And I guess partly also due to Corona, but it's been a mix, right? So they were in the process. We were still deciding and wrapping our head around whether this is the right investment for us. So, Corona played a role, but, we may not have invested otherwise too. We did one recent investment, just transferred the money early last week, right? So we just did an investment, but, in these times, certainly it's harder, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and you said that you asked your startup companies to describe the situation. How quick your portfolio and pipeline startups have informed you about their situation right now? And did you meet any surprises or unexpected insights about the teams for the recent 6 months? For example, like a weak teams have become more stronger or showed very good results during these recent 6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, so look, so first of all, I would say in our case, I think we're very, very positively surprised by our portfolio companies and how proactive most of them reacted to the crisis. Right, most of them were very early on already, before even the lockdowns, reaching out to us, adjusting forecasts, were already putting emergency measures in place, right, as scenarios, even though the situation back then was still very uncertain. So we were very positively surprised by our portfolio companies. I was also very positively surprised by a lot of founders that we had in the pipeline that proactively, communicated adjusted forecasts to us. Were very open about the Corona situation. I think that's very important, right? I think it's much more of a positive sign if a founder is honest about it and proactive than trying to hide it and rush it away. So I think that really was really good. And I saw many examples of companies that are using the current situation also to actually their benefit. One Dutch company I recently talked to, they're called Castor ADC. And they're the health tech space, very interesting company. And they're essentially now offer their platform for free to scientists, to play around and now test all kinds of solutions for Corona as well, right? So that's one example. One of our portfolio companies, Unicast, they offer location-based services. So they acted, right, offering this also now in Corona times to get analytics, to understand better how movement patterns, are correlated and what we can learn from this. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here as well, right? To take this from a positive point of view.
Right.
I see. Thank you very much, Max. And how do you communicate with startups right now?
Yeah, we see a very similar thing right now. We're obviously talking to dozens of founders, in the run-up of launching our fund. It's been very much like what Mike has said. It's been quite impressive how the response from founders has been. Obviously, one thing that we noticed at the moment, the situation started to settle in. So, about a month ago, about 4 weeks ago, when it started becoming clear to everyone this is the new normal and things aren't going to move back anytime soon. We definitely saw a surge of, the people that we talked to. Everybody kind of came back to us to verify, whether the plans are still on and what, how things are going to change. Thank God for us, nothing much is changing. Also not like, even if things are changing, it's definitely positive, not negative. We were quite surprised to see a number of companies adjust their forecasts. I've spoken to a number of founders this week already that we're, working with, who, they basically kind of, stretch their timelines. We have a number of founders that are taking pay cuts from the salaries that they either are paying already or are planning to pay upon investments. So yeah, people are very much in contingency mode. It's been very interesting to see how the first reaction that many people had, especially outside our industry, was like, oh, this is more like a holiday situation. But I definitely think that when it comes to founders, especially the ones that are fundraising, people are working harder now, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. Then what about your startups? How quick they respond or inform you about the situation with them?
Well, basically, we were very, very quickly under stress. The partnership, the partners within the fund. Also because we're quite experienced team, so all of us have been already in various situations in smaller companies or larger corporations through previous crises, and we saw already what happened, and we kind of had already some patterns and some recipes. So we very quickly managed to gather all the portfolio companies and to do a few webinars on things that they should pay more attention on. So of course we're of course talking about the obvious things, which are cutting not so important costs, cutting salaries, stop hiring, etc. But also some other things like being more persistent on collection, because sometimes people owe you money, but you just don't receive them. And now is the time to be super cop on that, and not to do any concessions, and various advices like that. There were like a couple of webinars, super useful discussions for the portfolio. I think that most of them reacted in a very very adapted to the situation very very quickly. And in general, actually, our portfolio is pretty good, in a great shape, because we were a bit lucky that out of 13 companies in our latest fund, the others we already have exited. So our 13 remaining companies in the portfolio, we had 7 that managed to raise end of 2018 or beginning of between the period of end of 2018 and beginning of 2020, they managed to raise significant A rounds. So all the companies actually have a lot of money in the bank, and that's kind of it's better to have money.
Yes.
I'm not saying that this solves all the problems or like the magic, but definitely kind of gives more confidence, and it's also time for some opportunities. We even pushed a couple of our portfolio companies to go and talk to investors again, because as one of our founders said himself to us, now the gasoline is cheaper, so why don't we do a full tank?
Right.
A couple of our companies were actually talking to VCs for round extensions or even for follow-up rounds. For the moment, these discussions are kind of very, very light, so I'm not sure how serious we should look at that. But in the same time, the important message was that you should always try to turn the situation into your advantage. So don't stress out, but see what you can do. Maybe you can go and fundraise again. Maybe you can finally get rid of the sales guy that was not performing that much, and that you didn't want to fire before, and there are some things that now is the time to do.
I also think, to Stefan's point, I think especially early stage, I think this is a great opportunity for validation. Right, because what you're seeing now, I think, is conversion on the bottom end of the funnel is going to significantly decline in most industries. However, top end of the funnel can potentially increase because people work from home. So people have more time to actually test out tools, to have conversations. So you can increase the top end funnel to build relationships, to have a better understanding, validate your product, etc. Use that opportunity, even though the conversion to selling revenue might decrease. Right, so I think that's another opportunity.
Yeah, another one is like buying new users right now. It's a good deal. So I was discussing with another company that I'm currently looking for potential investment, and they're B2C in the educational space, and the cost per acquisition of a new customer that they attract to their Facebook live videos and webinars, which is like kind of the first stage of their funnel. It's like 10% or like 5% of what it used to be a couple of months ago. Paying ads and attracting new leads could be also effective. And of course, there's some companies that are just in the right space when it comes to making savings. Like a company of ours called Clean Shelf, they're just optimizing the spending of other enterprises, other companies on SaaS. So a lot of companies spend a lot of money on SaaS subscriptions, and in average they're like 70 few subscriptions per company, and like sometimes people don't even know about those money that are going somewhere and nobody uses this service, or like they're paying for users who left the company, etc. And these guys, Clean Shelf, now they have a huge opportunity because they're just like coming in the moment like, oh, you want to save some money, we come to help you with that. So
exactly, yeah. So, and regarding investors and business angels, what would you recommend to investors to navigate these market changes and as well as pandemic's effects on global scale? Mike?
Yeah, I mean, look. I think there's two sides of the coin, right? I mean, to recommend investors, first of all, look at the industries that you want to double down on and invest in, right? And that depends on your thesis of your fund. If you have a fund, right? If you're an angel investor, I guess on your preference. But some industries are going to be much more risky to invest in now than other industries, obviously, right? Where they're much higher risk. So make that analysis with your investments. Second, of course, also look at it from an opportunity point of view. So in some cases now, there's actually additional opportunity to double down, right? As an example, but that's a bit for later stage, a friend of mine, you raised a lot of money for his company, is now actually using money to acquire smaller startups and companies, right? Because the prices now are significantly going down, and he can acquire the smaller players and acquire customers and additional tech this way. So that's a massive opportunity to kind of enrich your portfolio potentially as well. And also at the end of the day, if you have an existing portfolio, be extremely transparent and open with them and analyze of like where you need to help additionally, put additional money in potentially, and where you can't or do not want to. Because at the end of the day, as Stefan mentioned, if you have a lot of money in the bank account as a founder, as a portfolio company of an investor, that's great. It enables you to survive longer. But for the ones that are the high risk industry that don't have the cash at hand, you might need some measures at a very, very short notice, right? And think about this rather sooner than later.
Yes, exactly. And do you planning to change your industry focus for your fund?
No, I mean, we're not changing our industry focus on the fund, but what we are changing is right now the priorities for sure, right? So we're actually now looking further into health tech. I do think that there's a lot of opportunity there. As we're, as mentioned, focused on data intensive software companies in health tech, data plays a massive role. So it's already a vertical that we looked at, but now more than ever, we're analyzing this, like you're building a thesis around this further, you know, to see where we want to double down on. You know, we're trying to assess the risk in some other industries. So to what extent we want to invest, right? We just had the discussion on financial services, you know, where it's also going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen now towards the end of the year, because if a lot of SMEs are going to go bankrupt, cannot pay back the loans to the banks, you know, how's that going to impact them? You know, what's going to happen there in terms of budgets for software? Then I think there's a big difference what type of software. If you talk about risk software, that might actually be something that, you know, might still be very attractive to buy, right? Other software that's not really solving a clear pain, but rather nice to have, is quickly going to fall in a bucket that is not going to be as relevant for the short term and potentially midterm, right? So in those companies, we would right now rather not invest, right? So we're definitely going to look into like how painful the problem is in the solution, and if it doesn't make sense right now, definitely that's not something we would consider to invest in.
Okay, got it. Max, and what could you recommend to investors and business angels right now?
I mean, I think those are really different things. I think one of the things that, unfortunately, for many founders that we're seeing right now is that angels, especially the ones that aren't full-time angels or people who do this as a way of work, people who do this occasionally next to their main occupation. I think a lot of them are kind of, holding their purse right now. A lot of people are reprioritizing, their expendable income towards more urgent things, or towards, lengthening their runway in case their incomes fall short. For sure, for many people, this period has been, a period of adjusting to new circumstances. A lot of people that are owners of large businesses, very often we see angels in this region, especially people who are, making money off owning hotels or retail chains or other businesses that are very heavily impacted by this situation. So I think that the pool of angels, especially here in our region, in Eastern Europe and in Southeastern Europe, is definitely temporarily smaller. When it comes to VCs, I think it's very different responses. I think the vast majority of funds, or maybe I should say it differently, I think there's a very clear difference between funds that are currently fundraising and haven't fundraised fully yet, or are in the process. I think that many of them are kind of reassembling and talking, to their LPs and seeing what will be done. I think that I've seen a number of funds that have just recently closed just before this happened. They're actually, they're not just in business. They actually have to start working and to start doing deals. So those are the ones that I would look at if I were a founder. But it's quite different across the line. And maybe just to come back very shortly on one of the things that Mike mentioned on verticals.
Sure.
I mean, I definitely see, I think fintech in all of its various, shades and flavors is definitely going to pick up as we, as innovation in that sector is probably going to go quicker. Health tech, which Mike mentioned, is a good one as well. One of the things that we are looking at with my team, and we haven't reached any conclusions yet, but it's definitely something we're very interested in, is seeing if we can do any work as investors with the crisis response startups that are happening right now. Obviously, everywhere in the world, we're seeing all these hackathons happening. So we're taking a very close look there. We haven't decided anything yet. I don't want to get anyone too excited, but it's definitely something we're monitoring. And if we could do, for instance, a batch, it could be an accelerator program or something similar, it could be very interesting. So one of those, if we look back, Stefan mentioned before, if we look back at the crises that happened in, at least the one that I remember actively as a startup person in 2008, 2009, a lot of really great companies came out of that. So we shouldn't miss that opportunity this time around.
Exactly, yes. And Stefan, what could you recommend to investors and business angels right now?
So investors, funds first. For those who are in the process of closing. This is kind of a crucial time, so I recommend to hurry. That's what we're actually doing ourselves, because we're just about to close our first closing of our new fund. And I'm not that much worried about the corona itself, but by the global slowdown that can last for like a year or two or more in the next few years. So I would expect that there will be more. There will be more attention. People will be more careful when it comes to invest in funds. So all potential LPs will probably be more conservative, and for some there might be even some defaults. So people might commit some money, but then not be able to actually fulfill their commitment. This is something that we have to adapt when it comes to angels. Now it really depends what kind of an angel you are. If you're an angel that it's like just spreading across a multiple portfolio, then probably there is a lot of damage and a lot of bleeding, and probably it's a good moment to see, which ones you should cut and focus on the others. If you're more kind of an angel where you have only a couple of deals or even one deal and you're more hands-on or very hands-on, this is a moment for the angels to really sit with the founders and be useful with their knowledge, their wisdom, and their experience, because we expect from angels that they usually have a lot of background experience, so they lived through different cycles of the economy and they saw things that probably founders didn't see. So in the same time, if it's about doing new deals, I would look way more carefully. For sure there are a couple of verticals that should be avoided nowadays, like everything related to travel, to tourism, to commuting, to all those kind of things. Like even those stupid scooters that we have on the streets all over the place. That's like, these are typically businesses that now either as an angel or as a VC, you have to think twice before jumping into that kind of a deal. So the other way to look things, it's as an investor to be more opportunistic, to go and to be more aggressive with founders, to discuss more seriously the terms and particularly the valuation, because it's just like there are some days where money is cheap, and there's some other days where money and advice should be paid a bit more expensively, and we're getting into such days now.
Got it. Thank you so much. So guys, last but not least question to you, and even not question, but your forecast of the time of pandemic, quarantine, and the crisis. Who would start?
Are we taking bets here, or?
We'll try that.
Exactly.
Okay, I can start. I guess, look, I think it is very, very hard to predict, right? Because we have limited data. What I would say though is this: based on what I've seen now and heard, I think it is likely that the lockdowns will lift the beginning of summer. I think they'll last until the end of May, and many countries are going to be alleviated early June. And then during summer, I think the lockdowns are going to be in a much lighter form, maybe with some guidelines. However, what I'm honestly afraid of, that even if the lockdowns are going to be much less in summer, what I'm afraid of is another spike after summer. And this means that we might go into lockdown again after summer and go into a similar period. If you look at data now coming out of China, there are some articles suggesting reinfection. So that means there is right now, if you read some data, it seems that the amount of antibodies is actually quite small of recovered corona patients. So that could mean that reinfection might be possible multiple times. We don't know. And if that's the case, we might go into a completely different scenario, right? Very, very hard to predict. So at this point, what I would argue overall is I think it's unlikely at this point that we're going to see a V-shaped recovery. A very quick recovery, I don't think is going to be the case. I think it's much more likely to see a bit longer term effect on this crisis. And also what I think two elements here is this might trigger a more fundamental credit crisis, which has been blowing up for a long time anyway. What we've seen in 2008 was the subprime crisis, right? Triggered by the real estate market, and credit crisis has been blowing up for a long time too. So this is a bubble that might also now be affected significantly, right? And we will only know this after some time. So this is one big bubble that can have significant impact. Another one, depending on the lockdown scenarios, is that actually human behavior might also change, right? There might be new norm after Corona in terms of how we handle social distancing and all this stuff with additional impact on industries and businesses. So that might be very interesting to observe as well. So short answer is I do believe there's going to be longer term effect. How bad, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you, got it. Max?
Yeah, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, I can only echo what Mike said. I think that I'm slightly less optimistic about the summer, to be honest. I think that the summer will be heavily disrupted. Hopefully we'll get, we'll get some freedom of movement. I have a feeling that, the fluency of being able to travel and to meet each other across borders is definitely off this year. I have a feeling that within the European Union, we'll probably get into some kind of situation where on a limited basis we can go to each other's countries, but traveling outside the EU probably is not really going to happen this year. And of course, with that, it brings all the complications that as an investor you can expect. I was personally planning to, as we launch our funds, to actually start the roadshow with potential co-investors for deals with potential LPs in the future. Right after that, so somewhere end of summer, early fall, in various cities in Europe and the US. That's not going to happen. I think that also when it comes to founders being able to go and meet investors, that's definitely going to be very impacted by this. Some things can be done virtually. Stefan already mentioned before, the difficulty of being able to invest purely on an online meeting. I think for a lot of us, that will be difficult. So probably some investments with people that we haven't yet met will be not impossible, but definitely harder. That's going to be, I think, the rest of this year. Next year, I don't know, we'll see. It's very early to tell. For sure, it feels like this year, the adjustments that we're making right now will probably last throughout this year. It's very early to say what's going to happen next year, but I mean, nothing is going to be back to normal until we have that vaccine, until all of us are vaccinated, certified, et cetera, et cetera. So the entire thing will last more than a year, but hopefully at some point next year, we'll start getting a resemblance of normal. I think that this year we'll be operating in these duress circumstances. And if we can get some time, if we can please go back to restaurants and meeting each other in person and maybe going to the beach in our own countries or in the next door country, we'll be lucky enough, I think, this year.
Thank you so much. Stefan, could you please add your forecasts?
The thing is that, like you're talking to three of us, Max and Mike and myself, we are also on top of doing investments. We're the three of us. We're also event organizers.
Yes.
and each one of us was like, what should we do? Should we, maintain this like summer event or this October event, etc. So right now, the conference that I'm co-organizing was postponed to mid-October. A couple of weeks ago, I was pretty confident that the conference will happen. Now, when I see, how things are moving slow, I'm not even sure. So I think that, to summarize, 2020 is fucked up. I mean, my only hope is to be able to travel to Greece this summer, because me personally, I'm spending around like 3 weeks every year on the beach there and doing remote office. And of course, startups can come and pitch me at the beach. So it's called the Pitch at the Beach sessions with Stefan. So I really hope that I will be able to maintain this. But jokes aside, it's very, very hard to give. I mean, I'm not into finance or politics and things like this. So I mean, as long as things go back to normal, as Max said, at least that we meet each other and we have normal business meetings and conversations. For us, people in the tech, things will move back to normal. The problem is, will that be the same for our portfolio companies, customers, business partners, etc. So that's where actually I have more difficulties to say. Like I hope that, I mean, within a year everything will be back to normal in terms of doing business. I mean, of course, we'll all be in some kind of a lower curve of the growth and the GDP growth of each country of the world and everything, and of course, every single one of us will take a hit, a small hit, but then I hope that within the next 12 to 15 months things will be back to normal. But let's see.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you in person very, very soon. Hope not
Three
so
of us are
long
we're also like crazy travelers. so it's a very, very unusual for us. I mean, it's unusual for me to see Max checking in on Swarm in Sofia locations all the time. It's unusual for me. Usually I have the suitcase in the middle of my room and I never have the time to remove it. And now it's like I even managed to clean up my room that was not ordered for the last 2 years. So it's a bit unusual that we're not traveling, and we hope that this back on the airplanes and back of dragging suitcases to karaoke's after conferences in the evenings will start back soon.
Exactly. But the most important thing right now is to keep safe and secure and take care about yourself and your friends and those who live with you. So thank you so much, and hope to see you. And Max, of course, definitely will see you tomorrow at Venture Day conference online. And for our followers, please join us and stay tuned. Join us every day, every evening on Imaguru online stream.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
See you, everyone in Minsk. Hopefully soon. Thank you, Nasta. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.